So today we have Aleha Ingle with Work Culture Works. She's the culture alchemist for her business. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and I'm really excited to hear from you. Oh, of course that happens. So, no, it's fine. So first, tell me what you can about your time in the military. What did you do, and what was your favorite duty station, and why?
Oh man. So I actually joined in 2001 at the ripe old age of 19. I thought I knew what I was doing and I thought I was grown, you know? Both of my parents were Army and they taught me very early on, think smarter, not harder. Don't you dare go Army. And they made sure I went Air Force.
So
And they
good.
make fun of me for it every day to this day. And that's okay.
Chair force? Do they say chair force?
They do. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
But I started out as an ammunitions expert, so I built bombs, I counted bullets, I did all the missile inspections, all that fun stuff. But I got hurt a lot too. It was a very physically demanding job. And as much of a tomboy as I thought I was, I got tired of things falling on me and bones breaking and things like that. So I retrained into finance after 5 years, and so I became a real chair force member after that, sitting in an office the majority of my career. And then I did that for a little bit, and then I went right into the schoolhouse, and I taught for 4 years at the schoolhouse at Keesler.
Okay.
That was hands down my favorite assignment ever because even though the culture wasn't the best, it needed a lot of work. The actual job itself was the most satisfying, most rewarding thing I've ever done. And to this day, I'm still trying to get back into higher ed. So loved that job. After I left the schoolhouse, I went back into finance and then finished my job as a first sergeant. So
All
yeah,
right.
in 2022, I retired. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
So,
Long time coming.
yeah, well, 20 years. So, I mean, you hear different things. Like some people say that it flies by, and other people like it doesn't really fly by, but once it's there, it's like, wow. Did you,
Yeah, yeah.
how was that for you? Was 20 years a long time, or do you feel like,
I think just like most things, it depended. It depended
yeah,
on what part where I was in the career. I would say easily the first 10 years flew by like that.
yeah,
Easily. Like it's all a blur for me. And then the last 10 years were uh much more tumultuous for me. So, mentally it felt like it took a lot longer, but if I am not anything, I am resilient. So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and kept my head in the sand and kept going. And I actually made it to retirement. No
nice.
idea how, but here I am.
You did it.
I did it.
So tell me how you came up with the idea to start Work Culture Works, or also like, tell me a little bit about Work Culture Work. What do you do, or what do you offer?
Sure. Sure. So, well, Work Culture Works is an organization that, one, it teaches employees how to navigate difficult scenarios without getting themselves fired. But I also teach managers how to create environments where people don't want to quit. And it all focuses around a lot of people think that culture is stems from HR or maybe leadership training, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. It's the conversations that you have with each other. It's the pay scale. It's the company values. It's your customer experience. It's everything. Everything encompasses your culture, and it ultimately is the number one driving factor of how successful your business is going to be is if you're fostering a healthy work culture. And this is a new field. We've only had a professional organization, PSYOP and CBOC, for the last 5 years. This has only been around officially for about 5 years. So it's a very new field, and it's just now starting to get a little bit of traction. So it's the best thing I've ever done. Yeah.
Very cool. So
But
so
yeah.
from being and we had talked a little bit offline. So
Yeah.
your time in the service was kind of part of why you started this, right?
It was. So I experienced a sexual assault in 2015 while I was deployed, and at the time I actually worked for the sexual assault response coordinator on that installation, so I knew nothing was going to happen. I knew that if I reported it, nothing would happen to that man and nobody would protect me. So I kept it to myself. And I
Mm.
came back to the States, and, imagine, and this wasn't like a light assault. This was a very, very physically damaging assault. I ended up having to go to a hospital and get stitched back up. It was very violent. And I never reported it. So I got back to the States and I am trying to manage all of this in my head by myself with no help. And naturally, of course, I started becoming erratic. I was very emotional. My behavior was all over the place. And I just was not functioning. And the moment I knew that something was really wrong was um, nobody stopped and asked, why is our top performer all of a sudden a piece of crap? Not, at no point did anyone stop and say, why is the person we used to lean on for everything all of a sudden completely unreliable? She's emotional, she's crazy. We just got to push her to the side. We're not going to ask the questions that we need to ask to find out why she's even there to begin with. And so that I felt very abandoned, and I kind of spiraled mentally, and I stopped going to work. I was so depressed. I stopped going to work and no one even noticed. No one even noticed I wasn't in the office anymore. And this is while I'm active duty.
Yeah.
So I was at home. I hadn't left my bed in about 3 days. I was just a mess. And one person in my office did notice that I wasn't there anymore. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what. He just knew something was off. So he came to my house. He knew I was in the house because my car was in the driveway, but he couldn't get in. So he kicked my door down
Oh, geez.
and came into my bedroom, found me, threw me over his shoulder, and took me to the ER. And he said, promise me I'm never going to find you like this again. And I promised him. I didn't really believe it at the time. I just, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
um, but, he did me a huge favor that day because he didn't tell anyone. He didn't report it. He knew what would happen to me if he reported it. So he just took care of me and trusted me to take care of myself. And I owed it to him to do so. And so I did find healing. I did. I became obsessed with healing, and in turn, finding a way to create uh, an environment where I work, where in the field that I have control over. I wanted to make sure that no one that ever works for me ever felt the way I felt when I was struggling and no one was there for me and no one cared, no one even noticed. So I became obsessed with trying to create an environment where no one else would ever feel that way. And so I went back to school, and I ended up getting 3 master's degrees, not on purpose, but truly just because I was so obsessed with trying to be the best manager I could be, that I ended up getting uh, an indirect way learning how to be an industrial organizational psychologist. And so that's what my field is now, IO psychology.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible, and it's such a vulnerable story. Um, I'm like I try not to get too teary eyed, but like thank you for sharing that because that really does mean a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so well, I mean, I guess that kind of goes into the what is your why? So I guess
Yeah,
I really need
yeah,
to ask
yeah,
that question. Um, and
yeah.
and you are like the work culture thing, when we've got these transitioning service members and you ask them, what are you looking for, um and it's okay, a lot of people have their different priorities. Sometimes it is the financial aspect of it, um
Mhm.
And sometimes they can kind of block, everything else that goes along with those positions
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but then you see, so many that, and it could be for any number of reasons, right? So they end up retiring out of the military, or just, maybe just getting out. Maybe it's not even a retirement. And they go work someplace, maybe for the money, or maybe it was the first job that came about and they just needed some sort of stability.
Mhm.
Um, but then some of them, I guess the ones that are lucky actually end up, when they realize that they're not in the best environment for themselves, they go somewhere else. And then there's the ones that don't. They just are miserable and they continue to be miserable.
Yes.
And they don't even
Yeah.
realize why they're miserable. They know that they hate their jobs. And then there's that whole aspect of like, well, every job sucks. It doesn't have to be that way.
It definitely doesn't. No.
Um, so, just bringing that to head is, I think, very important. And one of the things I like to tell people, we talked about veterati earlier.
Mhm.
A lot
Mhm.
of things I like to mention is like, you know, check the work culture, get a feel before you end up somewhere. I mean, I understand you got to pay the bills, but at the same time, like, I guess it's like dating, right? If you
Yes.
dating some
Yes.
just to date someone, and then in the meantime, you're, like, missing out on something else instead of just saying, "You know what? I don't need to be with anybody. I can do this instead," and then end up where I need to be and where I need to be. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so that's yeah, work culture. I love that you do that, and I love that this is a thing because it definitely wasn't when I got out. Um, so,
Yeah.
what do you love most about what you do?
There is there is nothing more motivating than seeing the psychological safety return for some of these people. When I see somebody that isn't fearful of losing their job or pissing someone off, when someone says it's okay to be here now, that's everything to me. When someone is no longer questioning their own worth because their manager finally learned how to talk to them,
Mm,
that's everything to me.
yeah.
It's not about the money at all for me. It's truly, I just want people to understand how important creating an environment that provides that psychological safety is.
And
Yeah.
I could see that being a win all the way around.
Yeah.
Especially from a manager standpoint, like anytime you hire somebody, and I think, some people know this already, but there's some that don't, but every time that you hire someone, the company uses a lot of money to train them and a lot of resources and a lot of man hours because it's not just the new employee.
Right.
You're training them, so all those hours you're paying for somebody who isn't even contributing to the bottom line yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so to sit there and invest that type of money only to have them turn around and, maybe it's a few weeks, maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a few years, but you've invested all this money in these people, like, wouldn't you want them to stay and not have to
Right.
be finding somebody new and having that work I know some people hate this word, work family.
Yeah, I know. It's such a trigger word nowadays, but it's the original sense of the term absolutely is a positive thing, you know?
Yeah.
And you mentioned something that makes me think of one of the statistics I talk about all the time is, well, two statistics I'll tell you is one is 85% of work centers in America have some level of toxicity. Some level. It could just be, one department or one manager or one whatever, or it could be the whole thing. Yet, on the other end, senior leaders are only aware of 5% of those problems.
Wow.
5%. So there's a massive gap going on. So that's why I say sometimes it's not that they're doing it on purpose. They just don't know. They
Right.
need someone to show them these are the things that are happening at the bottom that you can't see.
Yeah. And the bigger the entity, I can see it being even more difficult. Smaller
Yep.
business, you know,
Yeah.
but the larger ones, yeah, I
They
mean,
just don't see it.
no, I could definitely see that. Like, my first job out of the military, I went to work for, it was actually a great company, so I'm not but that company eventually sold to another company, um, and it wasn't so much the work. The coworkers were great. I absolutely
Yeah.
loved everybody that I worked with, but the problem was that higher up, they were making these requirements that were unrealistic, and then just trickling it down, like, it was passed
Mhm.
down, down. My
Mhm.
supervisors knew that it wasn't doable, but yet because they were told this is what you need to do, they do what they're told. And
Mm.
maybe
Mm.
I don't know if they were too afraid to say something back.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know, but there were so many tiers above them, like,
Mhm.
and especially if it's a corporate company where maybe headquarters is way over here that are making all the requirements for all the individual locations, which are in themselves big. I mean, that just makes
Mhm.
it difficult. And what works in one state may not work in another, or, I mean, yeah, so many moving parts.
Yeah. No, that sounds a lot like, what James Monroe, he's one of my favorite authors, he talks about management by announcement. It's one of the worst things that a leader can do is management by announcement is do as I say. This is what I want you to do, but I'm not going to embody it myself. I'm not going to show you how it's done. I'm just going to tell you how to do it and expect you to follow through. But if you're not doing it yourself, how could you possibly even know that it's not doable?
Yes. Yes, and a lot of people will cut corners or just, I don't know, it's, yeah, I mm, there's a little
Yeah.
PTSD.
See, that right there is why I started this business. That feeling right there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, what would you say was your biggest learning curve when starting your business?
This is something that I honestly I still struggle with because it's a forever evolving thing. In order to be a business owner or in order to be a CEO, in order to be at the top, the C-suite, whatever, you have to be confident in yourself. You have to know you know your stuff. You have to be, someone that doesn't question yourself at any point. And the problem with that is you're going to get to a point where you can't do it all. You can't see it all. You need help. Trying to show them that you cannot do this on your own, that you need me, is still to this day a struggle. How do you tell someone who got to where they are today because of who they are that now they need to step back and pull in some assistance, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
I know you know what you're doing. I know you're a great leader, but you're at a point now where you need help and you're not seeing the problems anymore.
yeah, from all aspects, I could see
All aspects.
all
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah. I'm watching a company right now that I tried to help. I tried to help them for free. And I tried to warn the owner that his new CEO was a problem. He doesn't want to hear it, and now he's experiencing a mass employee exodus. Everyone's quitting. Everyone. And all he had to do was listen. But when you get to that point in your career, a lot of them don't want to.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that's just gonna be the case, right? Like, people, even when you're dealing with kids, you're dealing with spouses, you're dealing with another entity, right? Because 'Cause we're all individuals. Um, Trying to convince somebody of anything that is not in line with what they believe, um,
Mhm,
is definitely gonna be difficult because and having the ability to be able to tell somebody that without having hurt feelings is very hard,
mhm, mhm.
because there are some people that are a little bit more sensitive to that than, and I guess we all take things differently. Like, some people prefer it more direct.
Yeah,
Um, like, they won't hear the message unless it is direct. And then there's the ones that if you even slightly say that, you know what, you could use a little help, like the automatic, like walls up, defense
yes,
up. I
yes,
don't want to hear it.
yes,
You're wrong. You're wrong. I don't need this, like, without even looking into the situation. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
like, oh, it's like, "Okay, well, I'm hands off then, but
you're only ready to hear what you need to hear when you're ready to hear it.
I'll see you in a month when you start getting all those resignations."
That's sad that it gets to that point because it's not just affecting them, it's affecting everybody.
Everybody. Everybody, because again, a lot of those people don't even realize that it really does affect your mental health.
Yeah,
It really does make you question your own worth, your own value. Like, am I really that great of an employee if someone treats me this bad? Maybe I deserve it. And that's the worst thing that you could ever put someone through.
yeah,
When someone doesn't even appreciate their own value because of the things that you're saying to them in the work center, we spend more time with the people that we work with than our own families, and a lot of people forget that. The things that we say to each other in the work center are more impactful than it is our own family, because we spend so much more time with them.
that's true. And then when you come home after you've had a bad day or a great day, like, what's the first thing that you talk about at home? It's usually,
Right,
or you're
right.
still recovering from those feelings if you don't let it out,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
huge impact of the day. Um, so can you tell me a little bit about, like, the process of, did you start your company after you had retired, or,
After, yeah. Mhm.
and that was so so when you had started, I guess what prompted, like, I mean, I know, like, your reasoning, like, your why,
Yeah.
but what was the, like, I need to do this.
Yeah, so I when I retired, I first of all, I retired in the middle of COVID. So I started my transition right smack dab in the middle of COVID. I didn't even have TAP. I had nothing. Nothing prepared me for my transition. But the one that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because I am extremely resourceful. If you don't give me what I need, I promise you I will find it. And what I ended up doing, it I tried to go into the job world. I tried getting a job. I tried going to go into HR thinking that was the way to do it. No, that was the worst idea I could have ever thought of, because HR is not there to protect employees at all. They're there to protect the company. So if the employee is being abused, as an HR person, my hands are tied. I can't stop it. I can't tell them, don't do that. That's not psychologically safe. You can't do that as HR. So I tried the job thing a couple times, and then I stepped back. I said, I'm doing this all wrong. I can't come in from the inside like this. I need to do this differently. And that's when I started thinking, maybe I should just do this as a consultant. Come in with my own business, my own way of approaching things. And honestly, I didn't think I had an entrepreneur bone in my body. I'm very risk averse. I didn't think I was ever going to do anything like this. But once I realized that this is the only way to do it the right way, I never looked back. This is where I belong.
Oh, I love that. I know there's a lot of doubt, and I hear it a lot when somebody has considered entrepreneurship, it might be like, "Well, there's too many of whatever," I
Yeah.
mean, so at one point I was a photographer, not as a sole business, but, on the side, and I was thinking like, why would I do this? Because there's plenty of photographers out there, you know? Um, but then, like, there's enough room for everyone. There really,
Absolutely.
and so, that's that self-doubt in your head, like, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, that was true. There are a lot of photographers out there, but
No,
part of it
but
might also be like talking yourself out of something so that you don't fail.
yes,
Uh,
absolutely. One of my friends, Laura, thank you, Laura. She said to me once, who cares if there are other work culture consultants out there? Who cares? Have you ever been to the grocery store and looked at the bread aisle? How many types of wheat are there? You'll be fine. You'll just be one amongst many, and maybe you'll be the preferred one. That doesn't mean you can't do it.
yeah. Yay, Laura.
Yay, Laura, right? I would not be here if it weren't for Laura. Legit. Legit.
Oh, um, so what yeah, that's a great piece of advice. So what would be your piece of advice to give someone that was maybe considering starting their own business, but kind of on the fence, regardless of what industry it would be?
Oh, I love this question. Do it and do it now. It doesn't matter if you're ready. You're never going to be ready. You are never ever going to get to that point where you're like, okay, now it's time to pull the trigger. That's never going to happen. Just do it and do it now because you're wasting time thinking about it. Just pull the trigger. Face first, dive in, take that chance. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay because it was still a great experience. Just do it. I
That's
totally just sound like a Nike commercial right now.
just do it.
Just do
But
it.
that's great advice because I mean, it's the same thing, like time's just wasting. And
Yes.
you start, let's say you get your crap together, and you finally feel comfortable enough that you can go ahead and start. And now it's been 3 years. And then something that you thought you were prepared for, because it happens, right? Like, you think you're
Yeah.
prepared for everything, and then something comes up, and it didn't go the way that you thought it was going to go, or you found a better way to do whatever it was. Uh,
Yeah.
Now you've wasted 3 years waiting for something that you aren't even gonna be doing anyway because you had to make that change, uh,
Yep.
on this 3 years.
Yep.
So
And business ownership is a continuous learning cycle anyway.
yeah,
Continuously learning. Every time you think you've got it down, it's time to learn something new anyway. So that's why I say you're never gonna be ready. You're never gonna get to that point where you're like, all right, let's do it. Just do it now.
great advice. So what are you most excited about right now with Work Culture Works?
Oh man, so we just got our veteran owned, woman owned, disabled owned certifications. So now we are able to do federal contracts. We're very excited about that. I
Nice.
got me a brand new assistant. He's kind of hot. He's also my husband.
It's a good thing you think he's hot. Does he know that you talk about him this way? Like,
Yes. He
okay.
just rolls his eyes.
Oh gosh.
Uh,
That's a lot. That's incredible.
Huge.
How long did it take you to get your designators?
It takes several months because you have to get a lot of documentation together. Even starting out, I'm a startup. I have less than a year on the books, so I didn't even have that much to pull, but it still took a while to identify specifically what they're looking for. And then once you finally get everything in there, then they take their time on their end. So several months, probably 6 or 7. Yeah, from the
Have you,
time I started.
have you started the GSA stuff yet or not?
Not yet. I mean, I'm in there, but that's going to take a little bit more time. So
Yeah,
yeah, a little bit at a time, baby steps, baby
maybe
steps. You
moving
can't bite
forward.
it all off at once.
So where do you see yourself in the next year? Or
In
where
the
would
next year, I hope to have a regularly scheduled clientele by then. At least, depending on the package that they purchase, it could be anywhere from a phone call to a week to a month, so it really just depends on what kind of package they want. And I never take more than one client at a time. So my goal within the next year is to have a continuous feed of clients without ever having a gap.
and you have 4 packages, right? Like
I do.
I
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about those.
So the smallest one is just an advisory phone call, and that's usually the ones that um, they don't want you to come in and really tell them what's wrong. Maybe just give them a little advice, and that's okay. We'll talk for an hour. You can tell me what the problem is. I'll tell you how to address it. Then I also have a package where, oh, excuse me, I can come in and observe observations. I can just see what's going on. I can look through your records. I just identify things from what I can see on the surface. That might take a week, it might take a couple weeks, whatever. But then I'll come back and tell you what the other one is. Well, or not the other, the what the solution is, and how to address it long term. And then the third package is, this is what I call my covert alchemist. And so essentially you hire me as a W-2 employee, and I come in and I work as an employee for you for a month, and nobody knows why I'm there. Not even your HR. Nobody knows I'm there to document the culture. And after a month, I come back and I tell you exactly where the problem is and how to fix it.
Wow, that's like some spy stuff.
But let's be honest, if someone knows you're watching them, they're not going to be authentic. They're not going to be who they really are.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the best way to get the most accurate data. And then the other package is just, training workshops. I can come in without identifying or diagnosing anything. I can just come in and provide you with the best information to equip you with helping yourself along the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself being the go to for work culture. Industrial organizational psychology has over 60 fields. So culture is only one of them. So my type of wheat bread is going to be the best one you find.
I love that. The best wheat bread.
Yes.
So how can our fellow veterans best support you?
If you know any business owner that might have some employees that seem like maybe they're disgruntled, you don't know why. If they're experiencing a high turnover rate, you don't know why. Tell them to give me a call. I can definitely help them identify at least where to start looking. And with veteran business owners and veteran employees, I do the 1 hour advisory call completely for free for veterans. I will not charge a veteran for that service. Because
And
we got to help each other.
yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. Um, and are you like I know you have a website which we'll share in
Yeah, yeah,
do you have are you on social media at all as well? Or
I am. Yep. If you can look up Work Culture Works on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well.
great.
Yeah.
And so that is all of the questions that I have for you today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this valuable information. It sounds like such an asset for just, work culture, I mean, there are great work cultures out there, of course, but, um, the bigger that you get, the harder it is to know what's going on, and so I could see where a company could definitely benefit for something, from something like this. Um,
Yeah.
so my final question for you is or I guess it's like a statement, a demand. It's a demand. I'm just kidding. But, give us your pitch.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Is turnover increasing in your organization? Do your employees seem a bit more disgruntled lately? You probably have a culture problem. I've seen it dozens of times. Management gets too busy to spend necessary time with the employees, communication starts failing, your customer complaints start rolling in, and before you know it, you're witnessing a mass employee exodus. Most CEOs and management teams do not realize there's a problem until it has consumed their entire work center. I can help you identify those bugs within your culture that are hurting your productivity. I can pinpoint the activities that are sucking the life out of your hardest working employees and making them want to quit. And the best part is, I'll follow up once a month just to make sure you're still on track with our plan. So give me a call.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is a great time.